It was a very dark, rainy night. I remember the night, and I remember it clearly. I remember it raining heavily as I sat on the bus stop waiting for the rain to clear out. I remember checking my watch, and I remember it being 10:47 p.m. It was October, near Halloween. Of course, it creeped me out, and it spooked me out. Halloween was never my thing. I felt a numbing feeling behind me, but I brushed it off. The last bus of the night stopped in front of me. I thought twice and boarded the bus. I paid for my ride hoping I could save it, but it would take me hours to get home because of the heavy rain. I remember walking down the aisle looking at their blank faces. I remember the face of the bus driver. His eyes widened. I think it was about to pop out. I remember having continuous goosebumps every time I see their faces staring at me. Finally, I sat next to an old man, very tall. I think he was around 6 foot. With his top hat, I couldn't see his face clearly since it's bowed down. I vividly remember his stench, his whole smell. I remember being the smell of 1,000 corpses of dead, retching animals, like crows. I remember the faces of the people on the bus looking at me, their eyes widening, their sweat dropping to the floor. They all shook their head and stopped staring as they faced forward. After that, the bus started and it was on its way. I couldn't see the road out the windows because of the rain fogging up, and of course it was dark. All I can feel is a continuous goosebump starting to feel awful. I started scratching my back. I could feel the ragged breath of the old man near my neck as if it was smelling me like some prey. I brushed it off and looked out the window. Later on, I heard some clicking in my left ear. I wanted to look, but my instincts told me no, so I stopped. And a while later, I heard more clicking. I thought of it as the old man using his tongue to make a clicking noise to pass the time, so I closed my eyes and laid my head next to the window. I remember waking up to an ambulance siren driving next to the bus. I checked my watch and I felt dizzy, confused. My watch still said 10:47, as if time had stopped. The goosebumps stopped, but the old man still clicking his tongue. I just thought that my watch was broken and I continued to sleep. I remember his rotting breath. I remember it creeping behind me. I was scared, and I was scared nobody was helping me. I was scared what he might do to me. I was scared to open my eyes. And to this day, I'm still scared. I think I'm still traumatized. I felt the need to stop it to open my eyes. I could still remember their faces, the faces that were staring at me. It was all blank, no facial features, nothing. The bus stopped, the windows were all dark, and the rain turned red. The old man sitting right next to me is gone, and I was scared. I was pissing my pants out of fear, and I felt it again. The darkness creeping around me, trying to swallow me. I felt the goosebumps engulfing me, a whole presence. I started crying. I yelled to stop, but no one was listening. I closed my eyes, but I heard the clicking sound again. I stopped. I opened my eyes. I saw it. The tall, lanky man. Its ruined top hat, its sharp claws. I can hear his footsteps ringing in my ear. His face, I couldn't see it. But all I heard was the clicking. Next thing I knew, the people sitting weren't there. It was just me and it. It stopped. It chuckled, and there it was. It revealed to me his face. It was smiling. This just happened yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind. I'm not quite sure what to think of it because it was just so bizarre and unbelievable. I might have just been sleep deprived. So last night at maybe 2300 hours, I was walking around my block. My town is relatively safe, so I didn't feel in danger. Plus, it was a pretty night. I had been walking around for about 5 minutes when a pale woman with blonde hair and a white dress caught my eye from across the street. She was about my height and looked to be around my age too. I didn't actually pay attention to her after I first noticed her. When I circled the block again, she was on the same street, a couple feet in front of me. She was standing on the curb staring at the cars passing by. It was a main road, so even the late people were still driving on it. I said hello to her and she turned her gaze to me. I couldn't see her face super well, but from what I think I saw, she had no pupils or color in her eyes. She just stared at me. After a while, I asked if she was okay, and she didn't respond again and simply pointed at the road. I was really confused and I didn't understand. Right as a red car started coming down the road, she stepped into the road. The car slammed into her and it was a bloody mess. The driver immediately stopped and jumped out. It was a man in his mid-20s. We both spoke about it, just freaking out. He called the police and I went around the car to see the state of the girl. Once I circled around the car, she was gone. Not gone as in deceased, just gone as she just wasn't there. The blood on the road was gone too, but not from his car. After the police arrived, they concluded that was some big hoax of a kid who didn't know what they were talking about and some guy who went along with it. The blood on the truck was brought to investigate, only to be found as paint. Nothing else was put up about it. I'm still not sure what happened, if it was real. It just really felt real, but I don't believe in the paranormal. I don't know what it was. If it was just a dream or if it was real. I remember it just like it really happened. I feel like I can't even leave the house now. I don't understand anything now and I kind of feel like I'm going crazy. So let me know if anybody else has experienced anything like this. Our family briefly resided in a wonderful old farmhouse when Julie and I were young. We enjoyed climbing the apple tree in the backyard and investigating its dusty crevices. But the ghost was our favorite. We gave her the name Mother because we thought she was so loving and caring. On occasion, Julie and I would wake up in the morning and discover a cup on each of our nightstands that was not there the night before. Mother had left them there because she was concerned that we would become thirsty at night. She merely wanted to look after us. We also had an old wooden chair that was part of the original furniture of the house near the back wall of the living room. Mother would nudge that chair forward across the room toward us if we were just caught up in something else like watching TV or playing games. She occasionally managed to move it all the way to the middle of the room. When we pushed it back against the wall, we always felt sad. Mother only wished to be close to us. Years later, after we left the farmhouse, I came across an old newspaper article about the widow who had lived there when it was first built. She had murdered her 2 children by giving them each a cup of poisoned milk before bed, and then she later took her own life. An image of the farmhouse's living room with the woman's deceased body was featured in the article. That old wooden chair, which had been positioned precisely in the middle of the room, had been pushed down underneath her. My best friend from high school at the time and her sisters absolutely loved all things Halloween. They received a Ouija board for Christmas their sophomore year. Even though my mother repeatedly emphasized how dangerous it was, I was incredibly curious and couldn't wait to play with them. I disregarded her feelings, thinking that if my friend's family wasn't worried, then why should I be? My mother used to tell me that bad things could find their way in, and I could still remember that, but it made no sense. It was just a board game after all. My friend said, about the knife in the wall. The previous owners left a knife in the wall. I'm not sure when it happened, but my best friend's sister said she found a little secret hole in the wall in the closet at some point when they were kids. As they discovered pictures and a knife with the previous owner's name carved into the handle, it was clear the previous owner had used the small space to store their precious items. The items simply remained there after they informed their mom. They weren't able to give it back to their prior owner. He had been an elderly man who had taken his own life in the garage long before, as it reminded me whenever we were trying to scare each other during sleepovers. I was informed by my friend and her sisters, however, that no move knife had been written on the board at random that day. They appeared to be perplexed, and the board had closet spelled out on it. The board then reiterated that was referring to the closet knife. When questioned as to why they shouldn't move the knife, they recalled that the board had said, "Bad happen," leading them to believe that the spirit had intended for something negative to occur. When my friend's sister finally inquired about the potential consequences of removing the knife from the closet, the board displayed the word fire. My friend and her sisters claimed that they thought the ghosts were warning them that if they moved the knife, a fire would break out. Well, that scared the hell out of me. I wasn't certain I believed it, though. In any case, my friend was adamant that they would not touch anything in that tiny hole. After nearly 2 years, none of us are any longer interested in the Ouija board. We haven't touched it in years, and we no longer play with it. So my friend called, and she's hysterical, so I could finally understand what she's saying. In their basement, a wet, dry vacuum that was left plugged in accidentally started an electrical fire. Fortunately, nobody was inside, so firefighters were able to save their 2 dogs and 2 cats. They had to move out of their home since smoke had almost entirely destroyed the interior. For them, it was a very difficult time. Unfortunately, they were able to bounce back and eventually move on. So my friend and I had a falling out years later over something unrelated, and we haven't spoken in a while. My mother and I run into her mother, and they begin talking and catching up. Her mother starts to talk about the fire and believes she did unplug the vacuum. She said that she had deep cleaned the entire house that day, using the vacuum included. She mentioned some things from the previous owner. Even a knife left in the closet by him. A knife! The girls freaked out when I tried to move it, so I simply got rid of it after waiting until they weren't looking. Then it dawned on me that the Ouija board had followed through on its threat.